everyone, and welcome to the special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show, Media Giant Effect, and Growing Older with Enthusiasm with Dr. Ron Kaiser. Dr. Ron, how are you? It's amazing who we've been able to talk to so far in this community and how we're learning so much more about what's out there as your, first center and some of the conversations you're having to end the year that you're going to be doing a lot of things to help the older adult community, Dr. Ron. Must feel great.
Yeah, it's really exciting, especially given the fact that every day we get more and more people who enter our community reaching that age. And so I know we're having a really special guest today to add to our lineup. Really excited about it.
All right, so introduce our guest. I'm excited to talk to him as well.
Okay, well, our guest is Professor Andy Carle, and he is a multifaceted individual who's done great things working in the older adult community, both with active adults and people who are starting to slow down. So as I see your background, Andy, I see Georgetown University listed. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing most of the time?
Sure. Thanks, and good morning to both of you. I've been a healthcare and senior living professional for 35 years, the last 25 years, really dedicated to senior living. I've been an operator. I was the chief operating officer for a provider that had over 100 senior living communities nationwide. I specialize in memory care design. We can certainly talk about that. There's a great need for it in this country and moving forward. And then somewhere along the line, I've somehow managed to simultaneously spend 20 years in academia, where I created both the first undergraduate program for senior living executives in the country at George Mason University, and then among the first graduate programs that I now teach at Georgetown University in senior living administration. So pretty much this is working with older populations, aging populations, is all I've been doing for 3 decades.
Did you think that was going to be you, right? Or not, not right?
Then you wake up one day and it's you.
At least you're prepared. You're prepared.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
So do you work with the gamut of senior living possibilities from active adult communities to dementia care, or do you specialize in something?
No, I mean, senior living industry, as you know, has grown rapidly. I was actually fortunate to be one of the early people in it almost 30 years ago when there were only a handful of us. We all know each other. We've all watched and helped this industry grow. When I got into the field, you couldn't find assisted living in what was then called the yellow pages. Now, of course, everybody knows what assisted living is and senior living is. But yeah, everything from active adult communities, independent living, assisted living, memory care, which, as I mentioned a minute ago, is becoming just vastly needed. And then these, what we call life plan communities, which are continuing care retirement communities that offer all of those services on one campus. And I developed some new models as well. I do a lot of work actually with universities, a model I call university-based retirement communities, where I actually developed the model and worked with a number of schools over the years to build senior living communities on or near college campuses.
Wow. And the benefit of that is, are they able to be connected with the college, or is it
Yes.
the services of the medical facilities and so forth?
The bottom line is we've seen study after study that have shown that this next generation of retirees, baby boomers, and then some of the folks there even a little bit before, they want 3 things. They want active, they want intellectually stimulating, and they want intergenerational retirement environments. And at some point it occurred to me that they were describing a college campus. So they're also the most highly educated retirement demographic in history. A lot of them went to college. So it's actually a really good fit. Our generation, the generation coming up, we don't want to retire to some sleepy retirement community on top of a mountain or out in the middle of nowhere, rocking chair in the porch, right? We want to stay active and involved. We went to college, and we're very loyal to our alma mater. So these, what I call UBRCs, university-based retirement communities, are actually also just rapidly exploding in popularity.
So, and the thing is that no one has found out. So a lot of people enjoy what they do, and they don't want to stop doing it. There's a client of mine, Gary Sirac, who wrote a book, How to Retire and Not Die, and he basically probably could retire soon, but he puts his schedule in his business and keeps doing his specific things, but he lives it the way he wants it, and he's prepared when he retires. to what he does, because some people don't want to just sit back and just let the days go. And Dr. Ron is never going to retire. I can tell that for sure with his amazing thing at 85 years old, Andy. So what do you think? So like, what is going to happen if you said the population, as you told me, 70% of the population is older adults, starting to become older adults. How is the country going to adjust to this? How are they
Well,
going
I mean,
to?
it really comes down, and again, we discuss this in our courses, so I'm trying to prepare my students to be executives in this and how to deal with it. But really, it comes down to two big strategic questions: where are they going to live, and how are we going to take care of them? You know, look, 65 is not old anymore, right? 80 is the new 60. That's actually pretty much true in a lot of ways. But when you get to 80, 85, you have issues. You have, you know, your world is different. And we have to figure out how we're going to accommodate, you know, these 80 million baby boomers who are already 10,000 of them are turning 75 every day. Even as we speak, 10,000 of them will turn 75 today. And then they're going to turn 80, and then they're going to turn 85. And we really need to start thinking now about how we're going to handle their housing and healthcare needs.
Oh, very
And
good.
just generally, there's obviously a gamut of living possibilities from people like myself and my wife who are living in the same kind of situation that we could have been in 25 years ago. We had a home at that point. We're in an apartment. To people who are our age who need much more care. And I guess one of the questions from your perspective, uh, obviously it sounds like keeping the mind active is one of the things that you have going for you that enables you to hopefully avoid memory care as long as possible. What are the other things that you might suggest for older adults to be able to stay vital and relevant and age well?
Well, I think it's really about just understanding that, you know, we haven't found a cure for aging yet. So you know, knock on wood, the winning scenario is as you get to age. So first of all, if you make it to 80, 85, 90, I would point out you've won. But with that comes, you know, other needs. And again, can you stay in your home? Are you safe living at home? And when I talk to a lot of families for the last 30 years, it always comes down to three things. Can mom stay home? Well, three things. First and foremost, is she or he safe in their home? If they're not safe, you already have an answer. And that means physically safe, but also cognitively safe, right? If are they going to leave the stove on? Are they going to eat spoiled food? Are they going to forget to eat? You've got people over 65 average anywhere from 7 to 12 medications a day. Pretty hard for anyone to manage. But if you have, any level of dementia, early stage or otherwise, can they safely manage their medications? Number one reason older adults are hospitalized due to illness in this country: medication errors. They screw up their meds. So can she manage her meds? And then, that's the cognitive safety, let alone, by the way, that's just inside the house. If they leave the house, can they drive a car safely? Are they going to wander? Are they going to become lost? 60% of people with dementia will wander and become lost in what we call a critical wandering incident, which means the police are called at least once during the progression of the disease. So a lot of things to think about in terms of safety cognitively and physically, falls inside the home. As you may know, 1 out of every 3 seniors over 65 fall each year, but it's 1 out of every 2 over 80. You never hear that one. You always hear the 1 out of 3, but it's 1 out of every 2. Half the people over 80 will fall in their homes, and falls are the number one cause of not only hospitalizations, but death due to injury in people over 80. So does their bathroom, that's the number one place for falls. Do they have grab bars? Do they have a shower seat in their home? How's the lighting? People over 80 see things twice as dark as people who are 40. Are they going to trip over something in the home they didn't see? Are there loose rugs, throw rugs on the floor? Are there a lot of stairs? So you can see the list I'm going down. I've been going down with families for 30 years. A lot of things to think about when I say you reach the winning zone. But the winning zone comes with a lot of other factors, and a lot of that is safety in your home. Secondly, let's say she is safe. Okay, next question to the families: can she physically stay in the home? What we call activities of daily living: bathing, dressing, grooming, Those things become harder. Ambulation, getting around the house. Does she use a cane, a walker, a wheelchair? Have you modified the home with universal design to make it easier to get around the home? Does she smell when you visit? Does she smell nice? Is her hair nice? Are her nails clipped? If it's your dad, is he shaved? Are their clothes clean? Are they doing the laundry? Can they maintain the home? These are called instrumental activities, home maintenance, paying the bills, cooking, cleaning, driving. Look at the list I'm going down with families. So they say, well, she's safe at home. Okay, but is she physically, can she physically stay in that home? And then there's a third factor, and then we can move on to the next thing. This has just come up in the last few years, this whole issue of loneliness, which the World Health Organization has declared as an epidemic among older adults worldwide. And we never really thought about loneliness and its effect on your physical health and mental health. But we're now seeing, almost a 60% increase in risk to your physical health, almost a 50% increase to a risk of dementia, which you mentioned a minute ago, if you are lonely and not active, a 45% increase in the risk of death, all due to social isolation and loneliness. And by the way, more than 40% of seniors over the age of 65 report that they are lonely. So these three things I say to families: are they safe? Number one. Okay. If they're safe, can they physically stay in the home? Okay. But even if they can physically stay there, how's their mental wellness? How's their socialization? Because we now know the studies have shown it can be as dangerous to you as smoking or obesity to be lonely. So I go through this list with families and really have them sort this out. Now, if they decide there's a way for mom to stay at home, you can talk about physical accommodations, technologies. We can talk about that. Obviously, if none of this works, you're talking about senior living.
Yeah,
My hope is I want to, and I'll let you have next question, Dr. Kaiser. When we hit it off, Dr. Kaiser and I, in our first interview when he came on my show, I talked to he is about rejuvenating. This is his brand, and his brand is amazing because the fact is you have to growing older with enthusiasm as well. I look at it like I want to reverse aging in ways by figuring out I'm turned 50 in January. And I want to make sure I get certain areas that I'm not hitting the mark, like weight, working out, specifically like all my health and vitals, and try to reverse each year or 2 years to get younger what my health is. We all need to start to look at those things. I'm going to let Dr. Ron answer that question first, and then you, Andy.
Sure.
Go ahead, Dr. Ron. What are your thoughts, especially because you're not on any medications? He's not on any meds. You
I
just had
am
a
on
checkup.
energy now, but I
Yeah.
wasn't when I wrote the book. Depending on the season,
I would say
whether
Dr. Ron is definitely winning.
yeah, yeah, depending whether it's allergy season or not, I may not be on it, but basically, but I'm certainly not on the things that most people are on. I mean, my total cholesterol is 124 without a statin. So,
Nice.
most people are on cholesterol or heart medication at this age, or blood pressure medication rather. Um, but I was happy to hear you talk about, not happy, maybe the wrong word, but to be talking about loneliness, because I have what I call the non-negotiable four things that I think people, if they have control over their lives and if they're growing, then they want to be able to eat healthy. They want to be able to own their body through exercise, sleep, meditation, so on. Number two. Number three is keeping the mind active, and four is to be socially connected. And I think that's a pretty good recipe for moving forward. Of course, genetics play a role and lots of other things. And without forgetting Neil's question, I hope that you'll also get into. I know that you've done a lot of work in the area of memory care, and I think you've got a particular facility that you're really proud of. So while I hope that it's only kind of an intellectual exercise, and you can tell me about what happens inside of Medicare, a memory care facility, rather than me experiencing it. What if somebody gets to that point, where kids have made the decision, or others, physicians and so on, or they're the person themselves, that they really need memory care?
Yeah.
What happens there? I mean, we have in the common mind, there's a lot of stuff, nursing homes, even things that probably aren't called that anymore, but uh, rehab facilities, so on. What happens when somebody goes into memory care, and is it a kind of a maintenance thing? Are there growth producing activities, or what happens?
Well, first of all, I mean, yeah, let's just skip right to this final scenario, right? Look, first of all, everybody on the screen is right. You do a lot of things to delay the onset of a lot of these aging issues, but we do know that empirically, we have not found a cure for Alzheimer's, which represents anywhere from 60 to 70% of all dementias. There are other kinds of dementias we have not found a cure for and are irreversible. And we know that empirically, X% of the population over 85, about 1 in 5 people over 80, and 1 in 3 over 90. And a lot of people are living to be 100 now, have some form of dementia. And short of a cure, which is unfortunately not imminent, that is not going to change. Now, the good news, if there is good news, is we have worked very hard for the last 30 years to invent facilities for people who literally, as we just discussed, are not safe at home, cannot physically take care of themselves at home, are not able to, because of their cognitive issues, really socially engage and without specialized programming. But the good news, if there is any, is we have developed some very, very extensive memory care communities just for these folks. And look, as Dr. Ron said a minute ago, they don't need a nursing home. All right. They're not bedridden. In fact, unfortunately, their brains have broken before their bodies have. A lot of these folks with forms of dementia can outrun me in the parking lot, frankly. Their issue is they're not safe, and they need specialized programming. So this has been a passion of mine for 25 years, and we've made great progress in an assisted living, which is not nursing homes, but in an assisted living version of memory care, which we call memory care assisted living. Very, very specialized. I like to refer to it as our ICU. Very highly trained staff, highly trained programming. But the most important part is probably the physical environment. And what's happened here is I've focused on that extensively, taught courses in this, classes in this, presented on this. Just worked as the consultant designer for a memory care renovation of a community called the Virginian here near me in Fairfax, Virginia. It's a 300 resident full continuum community, but they was a 40-year-old community, needed renovation. The first thing that the ownership group did, this is Focus Healthcare Partners out of Chicago, to their credit, the first thing they said is we need better memory care. And they asked me to design a renovated and expanded memory care for them. We can talk a little bit more about it, but it did just win a National Gold Award 2 weeks ago in the entire industry it's called Environments for Aging, which is an architectural and interior design competition. And this is called Shenandoah Memory Care. And it just won the Gold Award as the best redesign and renovation in the country of any kind, let alone memory care. It's a very, very special community. I'm happy to share links for you guys to post where folks can go on and see pictures of what we did and learn more about it. But this is designed right down to the doorknobs. We can talk more about it if you want, but the kind of thing that represents the next generation of memory care in this country.
I mean, I look at it in hearing this, and thank you for the great work, Andy. Now we're finding out with concussions and CTE that we can reverse some of that. So hopefully this happens for this community. I have one of my clients is one of the best doctors in this industry in concussions, and I've always told them, if you figure this all out, you need to go into this too. Because if we can figure out a way to reverse Alzheimer's and reverse dementia and do all these different things through things, wouldn't that change a lot? And people be living to 100, 110? Because once you have a specifically lose your mind in certain ways, it's over. It's going to be very difficult because you get into a nursing home. God forbid you ended up contracting COVID or something after that, or you ended up falling. And then once you get bedridden, your body deteriorates and you go, and that's what causes lots of death of older people.
Yeah, but I mean, look, to that point, there's always something that's retained. You know, I've worked with thousands of people with Alzheimer's, even late stage, where I've been told they can't even speak or do anything. And then, you know, I find out that they once played the piano, and I walk them to a piano and they sit down and start playing, and their family starts bursting into tears because they didn't know. But there's always something that's retained in there, even into the very, very late stages. I'll tell you quickly, if I can, 3 things we did at Shenandoah that had never been done before. We created spaces just for that, and spaces that would tap into their retained skills. So instead of just having a boring reception lounge, I created what I call a reminiscence lounge. When family members walk in, everything in there is from the late 50s, early 60s, something called the reminiscence bump, which has been shown that our most powerful memories are formed basically in our late teens and through our 20s. So if those are the memories they retain, why would I have a boring lounge, a boring reception room? Why wouldn't I have a reception room where you step into it and you are in that time frame? And everything in there, there's no props in there. There's literally a dress model with a 60-year-old poodle skirt on it and saddle shoes that are not Halloween costumes, actual poodle skirt magazines. They're high school yearbooks, local, not you know, posters of Elvis, local things. They're actual high schools that they attended, that we have their yearbooks on a shelf there, where they can sit down with their parents and start flipping through their high school yearbooks. Those are memories that they retained exactly. And when you're talking to them in that moment, there's no dementia. They remember it exactly. And the pictures on the wall that they helped us pick out. Now, this is the Washington, D.C. area, but you know, photos of old Washington stores that don't exist anymore. An ice cream shop
So great.
called Giffords that everybody remembers around here. It's been gone for decades, but they will look at that picture of Giffords ice cream and go on for 15 minutes about it. That's just the reception area. We've created a whole nother room called the sensory lounge, which we can talk about, but instead of a boring lounge, it's tactile artwork, circadian lighting, live fish, aromatherapy. You can have Alexa play nature sounds. And then it's got this really cool tabletop hand motion video game that has, you just move your hands and play games, and pop bubbles and things. 60 games designed by PhD gerontologists just for people with memory issues. That's just in this little sensory lounge. And then real quickly, instead of having a boring outdoor courtyard that no one uses, I call it the no exit exit. When they go outside, they almost always start thinking about how to get out. So I created a two-themed, multi-themed. Half of it's a 1960s backyard with a dog house and a picnic table and rocking chairs on the porch and an American flag and a white picket fence with a mailbox with mail in it. But they can go out that white picket fence, cross a faux street, and actually enter the other half of the courtyard, which is a park with a winding path and an ice cream cart and a Washington Post mailbox and benches and a little fake duck pond with fake ducks in it, and a big picture of a carousel that's very famous around here. But look what I've done here. You know, instead of just stepping outside, their exit seeking behavior is addressed. They can leave the backyard, go out the fence, cross the street, go to the park, enjoy the park, come back home. They think they've exited, they've gone nowhere. They're very happy and they're engaged. So thank you for listening. But look at just those 3 areas, none of which have been done in that way anywhere else in our industry before, that can now be a model moving forward and tap into their retained memories and their retained skills.
I need to connect you, and Dr. Ron, isn't that tremendous? I need to connect you to Lisa Gibbons. I've had her on my show a few times. She's doing tremendous work with Alzheimer's, and we'll definitely chat with that. Dr. Ron, this is amazing, right? It's really it's so fascinating.
Fascinating, and really looking forward to learning more from you, Andy. I just have one question.
Sure.
That's kind of gnawing in the back of my head. It all makes sense if they've got kids and they're alone. What happens to a spouse who does not have dementia if somebody needs this kind of care?
It's hard, and I walk through the same 3 things. Look, is she safe? Okay. Can she take care of herself in the house? Okay. But I really have latched on recently because the studies are so powerful, and this whole topic of loneliness. I think we missed it, frankly, for decades. I think we underestimated it. dramatically. We did not realize the health impacts. And I'll tell you a quick little example of how we know this is true. We had this terrible pandemic, right? Where everybody was trapped in their homes for 2 years, including mostly seniors, because they were terrified of coming out. They were at great risk. And we heard all these stories in the media about what was going on in nursing homes and congregate settings with seniors, and oh, they were so dangerous and all that. Well, first of all, the assisted living and senior living communities were not nearly on the level of nursing homes. Okay, but here's what was interesting. As soon as the vaccine came out, as soon as the vaccine came out, inquiries to senior living skyrocketed. So think about it. The places that they've been seeing on the news that were supposedly, don't live there because everybody's going to get COVID, inquiries went through the roof. And what we found out is more interest to these seniors than what, the risk of the COVID, once the vaccine was there and removed that risk, was their loneliness. Was maybe in some ways harming them in ways much more extensively than we thought. And since the vaccines have come out, almost all of the occupancy levels of senior living have gone back to where they were pre-COVID and continue to grow, because maybe one of the biggest lessons we learned is it really is terrible to be a prisoner in your own home.
But does the spouse move with them, or
Yes, typically. And one of the things with the full continuum communities, like the Virginian, has independent living, assisted living, right? Memory care. We have several couples at the Virginian where the husband lives in independent living even, but the wife is in the memory care. In fact, one of my favorite couples there, that's their situation, and he dotes on her and visits with her every day. But he's very, very happy that she's in the part of the community that was designed just for her. And he loves it, and so does she, frankly.
That's powerful. Dr. Ron, I want to know, Andy, do you have a website so people can find you?
I am a consultant, so in addition to Georgetown, they can find me at Georgetown, but I do consulting, memory care design, lots of other UBRCs. It's carleconsulting.com. C-A-R-L-E consulting.com.
All right. Well, we appreciate it, Andy. This is such great information. Dr. Ron, you have one more question. That's fine. I think that ultimately, at the end of the day, our money needs to be spent on this older adult population because of, you talked about off the air, the amount of wealth that's in that, so that basically we want them to keep living, to be able to keep the economy going and paying taxes. And then the other thing is we got to look at specifically enough how everyone can live longer, so we can continue to enjoy our lives, so that the people that have suffered through this will never have to suffer again. And what the work you're doing, Andy, is tremendous. It really is. You should be commended of what you're doing.
Thank you.
All right, good. Dr. Ron, another question for Andy?
I am all questioned out for now. I really appreciate the time you spent with us and what you shared with us, Andy. I'm sure it's enlightening to lots of listeners as well as ourselves.
All right.
Well, thank you both so much for your time, and also for all you do. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right. That was Growing Older Enthusiasm and a special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and the Media Giant Effect. Take care, guys.